She was about to deliver, and her doctor was her ex-husband. What he did will shock you forever. The air in the delivery room crackled with anticipation, thick with emotion. Lights flickered against sterile walls, revealing shadows that danced like ghosts. A heart monitor beeped steadily, each pulse echoing the fears and hopes of the moment. Kayla lay on the hospital bed, her breath shallow, as contractions gripped her with an intensity that stole the strength from her limbs. She was ready to bring new life into the world, but the very man tasked with delivering her baby was the one man she never thought she'd see again, her ex-husband, Dr. Nathan Reed. The tension was palpable. Just hours ago, Kayla was nervous about bringing her child into this world alone, but this added twist was something she couldn't even begin to process. Memories flashed before her eyes. Their wedding day, the laughter, the fiery arguments, and ultimately, the heartbreak that led to their separation. Now, Nathan's presence, looming over her with a mix of authority and unexpected vulnerability, turned the room into a pressure cooker. His handsome face was a mask of professionalism, but those familiar emerald eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper: conflict, regret, longing, or perhaps even fear. Could he really set aside their tumultuous past to ensure the safety of their child? She could feel the warmth of her tears threatening to spill over. The beeping of the monitor began to sync with her racing heart. Were they truly ready to face this moment together? The memories of their shared laughter and whispered promises now loomed like comforting shadows. But could they really rely on each other again? The nurse bustled around them, momentarily breaking the spell. The smell of antiseptic filled her nostrils, making her stomach churn, yet she held on to a sliver of hope. Maybe this baby could mend what once seemed broken. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The weight of silence lay heavily between them as Kayla's next contraction hit, constricting her body like a vice. Nathan's hands, once so tender on her skin, were now sterile and distant, yet they belonged to someone she used to trust fully. Would he be the doctor she needed in this moment, or just a ghost of her past? As she moaned through the pain, a whispered argument between physicians outside the door startled her, bringing her back to the present. The distant sound of an alarm added to her unease. Was everything all right? Kayla's heart raced again as she glanced at Nathan, trying to gauge if he felt it too, the depth of uncertainty hanging in the air. All these questions flowed and swirled in her mind as they prepared for the unknown. Would they talk about their past? Could they find common ground? Or would this be a night filled with regrets they could never escape? With each passing second, the world outside seemed to fade, and all that existed was the two of them and the life that threatened to enter the world. Could they face it together? As Nathan took a step closer, the moment stretched, taut with possibility. What would happen next? With a deep breath, Nathan stepped closer to the bed, his fingers hovering just above Kayla's sweaty forehead. Her eyes searched his, desperate for reassurance. The moment felt electric, charged with unsaid words and old emotions. Kayla, he began, but her next contraction exploded through her body, cutting off his words like a knife. She gasped, eyes wide as pain slashed at her. Nathan's instinctive response was to grip her hand hard enough to anchor them to this moment, to keep them grounded while they faced the storm ahead. But was he even the right person for this? The familiar scent of his cologne, mixed with the antiseptic, churned her stomach. Memories flooded her mind, storm clouds gathering. I can't do this, she cried, her voice trembling. The monitor began to beep emphatically, each pitch rising with her frantic panic. Kayla, look at me, he said, forcing calm into his voice. You've done this before, you're strong. Just focus on your breath. Through gritted teeth, she met his gaze, and the connection hung like a thread between them, fragile yet undeniable. Pain and vulnerability blended seamlessly in the air around them. Outside, the argument escalated, the tension transformed into shouting. An unsettling feeling related to urgency seeped through the door, making her skin prickle. The muffled words of a doctor carried into the room, while the other voices just faded into noise. "Dr. Reed, we need an update on the situation," a nurse yelled, urgency rushing through every syllable. Nathan's demeanor shifted instantly, like a switch flipping. The calm exterior faltered, worry creased his brow. He glanced back towards the door, tension coursing through his muscles. "Stay with me, Kayla," he urged, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "What's happening, Nathan?" He hesitated, struggling to maintain a professional facade. "It's okay. Just focus on the contractions. You're about to meet your baby. This is the moment we've both been waiting for." Kayla's heart raced, not just from the labor, but from the weight of those words. Had he truly meant we, or was he just trying to comfort her? The way Nathan's gaze darted to the door filled her with dread. What was going on outside, and how could anything be okay if chaos brewed just steps away? "Kayla," Nathan interrupted her thoughts, his grip tightening around her hand as her body tensed again. "It's time." The urgency in his voice sparked something within her, igniting her willpower. As the contraction tightened like a vice, she gritted her teeth and bore down, the pain intensifying into a fierce wave that crashed through her. "What if we don't make it?" she whispered, her throat thickening at the thought. "Nobody is leaving this room without you," he promised, voice a fierce whisper that echoed with conviction. "I'll make sure of it." But just as she steadied herself to push, the room flashed with blue lights and the din of footsteps echoed in the corridor. The door swung open abruptly, revealing a flurry of nurses and doctors rushing in. The air changed, thick with urgency and the harsh clamor of alarms. "What is going on?" Kayla gasped, panic rising again, and Nathan turned to face the tempest of bodies flooding in. "Stay calm," he instructed, his voice steady against the chaos. But inside, his heart raced with a new kind of fear. The hair on the back of Kayla's neck stood up as she caught Nathan's wide eyes, realization dawning on him as something beyond their control descended upon them. And then, before she could catch her breath, the words echoed through the room. "We have a code blue in delivery. We need all hands on deck." In that instant, the comforting illusion of control shattered. As they pulled Nathan away, Kayla felt the grip of despair tightening. Would he come back? What if he was taken from her again, this time before they could create their future? Time hung heavily in the air like a lingering storm cloud ready to burst. As the door swung shut behind him, a lonely silence enveloped Kayla, punctured only by the incessant beeping of the monitor. Who was there to help her? Now, the room felt like it was closing in, but she couldn't lose hope. The doctor had promised he wouldn't let her down, but could she hold on long enough to see it through? The pain surged again, stronger than before, and as she pushed against the fear, darkness threatened to swallow the light. What would happen next, as the moment of deliverance loomed closer, with Nathan on the other side of that door? The seconds bled into each other, stretching time into an unbearable ache. Kayla lay in the stark room, the sounds of chaos muffled by the pounding in her chest. Her breaths came in short, sharp bursts, mingling with a rising anxiety that threatened to overwhelm her. Where was Nathan? The certainty of his presence had been her anchor, but now it felt like the very ground was slipping away as she inhaled deeply. The antiseptic air pierced her lungs. The room was filled with shadows that loomed larger with each passing moment. Desperate, she pressed the button for the nurse, each beep of the machine a reminder that time was running thin, and with each pulse of pain, the reality of her situation sank deeper. "Help, please," she gasped. Panic pulsed through her, mingling with labor pains as the familiar urgency surged again. Sharper this time, a nurse rushed in, her face set with a tight professionalism that barely masked the concern in her eyes. "Kayla, we need to monitor you closely," she said, hustling over with equipment, each movement efficient yet frantic. "Where's Nathan?" Kayla's voice trembled, adding an edge of desperation to her request. The nurse glanced toward the door, and for a fleeting moment, Kayla saw a flicker of pity. "He's being called for a critical situation. But we've got you. You're not alone." Those words, meant to reassure her, instead ignited a sense of dread. This wasn't just about her. It was about a life that was teetering at the edge of existence. Kayla's next contraction rolled through her, each wave crashing down harder than the last. Tears brimmed in her eyes as the pain peaked, shooting through her core. She bore down, gritting her teeth, futilely hoping she could simply will the fear away. Suddenly, the door swung open again. This time it was Dr. Reed, her obstetrician, a tall figure framed by panic. His white coat flared a bit as he moved, the name badge reading Dr. Harrison Reed. Kayla's heart raced not just from pain, but from a well of unresolved emotions. It felt surreal to know that the person standing before her was both authority and confusion wrapped in one. "Kayla, I'm here to help. We need to be ready," he said, eyes searching her face, flicking over her monitor's readout. But beneath the professionalism, she caught a glimpse of something else, a shadow of guilt, or perhaps regret. "Dr. Reed?" she managed, voice cracking. "Where's Nathan?" "We'll manage without him," he replied, snapping into action. "I need you to focus on me. Kayla, I know this is overwhelming, but you have to push through. You're close. Just think of the baby." Fear coiled tightly in her stomach. This was Nathan's moment. He was supposed to be here, sharing this a moment they had once dreamed of together. Instead, she was face to face with her past, the weight of it heavier than the labor that gripped her. "I can't do this," she cried, her voice echoing against the sterile walls. You're not supposed to be here. Breathe, Kayla. This is about you and your baby," he urged, but she could see the strain in his features. A flicker of doubt crossed his brow, deepening her resolve to fight against the pain. They shared a history that crackled like static energy between them, memories rushing forth in a disordered whirl. The monitors beeped incessantly, each sound pressing down on her. "I need Nathan," she shouted, feeling her control slip. Instinct kicked in. She could feel the contractions intensifying. The pressure mounted, and despite the tension thrumming in the air around her, she focused inward. She had to do this, for herself, for the child. She took a deep breath, preparing for the effort of a lifetime. "Kayla, when you feel the next wave, I want you to bear down," Dr. Reed commanded, pulling her focus back to him. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable, his gaze penetrating. "I know you can do this. I believe in you." "Believe in me?" She seethed, resentment bubbling within her. "You don't have a right to say that." But all that rage and hurt faded under the onslaught of another contraction that drew the breath from her lungs. She felt the instinctive need to push, to fight, to bring forth life against the backdrop of emotional turmoil. "Now," he urged. The air was electric as she pushed, muscles screaming, the world narrowing down to the rooted belief that this was her fight. Just as the pressure began to peak, a loud commotion erupted outside the room, drawing both Kayla and Dr. Reed's attention. "What now?" he snapped, looking back at the door, his professional composure faltering. The door swung open again, revealing a new figure with a determined stride, cutting through the chaos. "We've got a situation," a voice barked, piercing through the tension. Kayla's heart raced again, confusion swelling in her chest as she caught sight of the newcomer. All she could think about in that moment was, where was Nathan? With each rush of labor pain, an undeniable instinct pulled in her gut. There was more at stake in this room than just her child's birth. Secrets and lies awaited their unveiling, threatening to shake the very foundation of everything she thought she knew. What secrets now loomed in the shadows, and would they make it to the end of this journey together? The newcomer stepped inside, exuding a commanding presence that sent a chill racing down Kayla's spine. It was the hospital's emergency director, a tall man with sharp features and eyes that searched the room like a hawk. "We have a code red," he said, his voice cutting through the turmoil like a knife. "We need extra hands in the surgical ward." Dr. Reed turned sharply, his earlier focus on Kayla distracted by the urgency in the other's words. "What happened?" His voice was clipped, eyes narrowing as if trying to access a file of emotions buried long ago. "Car accident. Multiple traumas. They're rushing in." The director leaned in closer. "We're going to need every available doctor for this." Kayla's heart began to thrum in her chest, panic swirling alongside her contractions. "No, you can't leave me," she cried out, desperation clawing at her. "Kayla, listen," Dr. Reed began, but she cut him off. "Get away from me. You don't get to leave me now." Her voice echoed against the sterile walls, the urgency of her labor mixing with the dread of abandonment. The tension between them was a live wire, crackling in the heavy air. Dr. Reed hesitated, his eyes flicking between her and the director. Outside, murmurs escalated as the chaos grew with the arrival of more personnel. This wasn't just a birth, it was a firestorm. Stay, Kayla pleaded, each word a fight against the surge of pain welling inside her. I need you here. Please, please don't go. The emergency director stepped closer, attempting to ground the situation. We don't have time for this, Harrison. You need to make a choice. The phrase hung in the air, heavy, pinpointing the very heart of Kayla's plight. Choices. Her mind spiraled through memories tinted with their shared past, a swirl of love, loss, and unspoken regrets. She couldn't face this moment alone, not without Nathan, not without anyone she could trust. Dr. Reed, if you leave, I can't guarantee, she breathed raggedly, her body trembling as the next contraction hit. Kayla, he said, his voice softer now, betraying the conflict within him. I can't stay if stay, she croaked, her breath hitching violently. Don't you dare walk out that door. I can't do this without you. Before he could respond, another wave of pain crashed over her, heat and pressure surging, squeezing, an all-consuming force. Her vision blurred, and for a moment, the room tilted. Time dropped to a whisper. The monitor's beeping escalated, each pitch rising alongside her escalating heart rate. Kayla's world narrowed down until only Dr. Reed remained, the air thick with unresolved history. Just when she thought she couldn't possibly endure one more second, she felt the surge of strength from within, urging her to push. Now, Dr. Reed instructed, holding her gaze with all the warmth and energy he could muster. I'm right here with you. Every ounce of fear coiled into raw energy, surging through her. Kayla pushed down with everything she had, her entire being focused on the life that was emerging against the tide of pain. But outside the moment, chaos insisted on making itself known. The door flung open once again, revealing two paramedics rushing in, faces white with urgency. She's crashing. One of them shouted. Kayla's heart sank into despair. What now? Was it her? Was it the baby? Dr. Reed turned abruptly, his demeanor shifting into doctor mode, urgency replacing any personal emotions that had lingered. Get the equipment. Move. He commanded, a stark leader in the face of crisis. Fear mingled with anger as she watched him switch gears, a man she barely knew in this moment. What is happening out there? She shouted, her voice raw and strained. But there was no time for answers. Next to the tumult, another contraction rolled through her, fierce and relentless. Despite the emotional storm, her mind fixated on one simple thought, the baby. Push, Kayla. Dr. Reed's voice anchored her, fought against the chaos as she fought against her own pain. But just as she gathered her strength, a shattering scream echoed from the hallway, and everything about this nightmare shifted. Hold on, Dr. Reed urged, and Kayla's heart raced with fear yet again. Who was screaming, and why did it feel so intertwined with her own fate? A dawning realization gripped her. There was so much more happening in this hospital than she could imagine. Outside her room, another kind of fight was beginning, one that might very well intertwine with her own. Would she find out what was so dangerously intertwined with her moment of life? Or would secrets come crashing down before she could even grasp them? Kayla's mind became a whirlwind of panic as the echo of that scream ricocheted through the sterile walls of the maternity ward. The pain clamped down on her, a vice squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. She caught glimpses of Dr. Reed, his face a mask of intensity as he barked orders, transforming into a full-fledged doctor focused on the emergency unfolding just beyond the threshold. Stay with me, Kayla, he shouted, snapping her attention back as he leaned over her, urgency affecting his features. Tears pooled in her eyes. She didn't want to think about whether it was her life or the life she was trying to bring into this world that was in danger. The thought felt like a lead weight dragging her down. What if it's my baby? She gasped, her voice trembling. He squeezed her hand, grounding her in the moment. Focus on me. You need to keep pushing. That's all you need to worry about right now, okay? But the moment became electric with tension, as though the very air crackled with uncertainty. She shot a glance at the open doorway, where the commotion intensified. Nurses moved in a blur, loading a gurney with an oxygen tank. The paramedics were frantic, their voices a chaotic mix of commands and pleas. Another scream pierced the cacophony outside, this one unmistakably haunting like a ghost calling through a crowded room. Kayla's heart raced faster than she thought possible. "Someone has hurt. What is happening?" The words tumbled out, half-formed, pleading for clarity. Dr. Reed's expression shifted momentarily toward concern. "We'll find out soon," he promised, his careful demeanor slipping for just a moment. She caught a flicker of an emotion, a remembrance of what they once shared, and it made her heart ache all the more. The weight of past love lingered between them, but there wasn't time for nostalgia, not now. The contraction pulsed again, stronger and more demanding. No, she couldn't let fear overtake her. Ignoring the chaos beyond her room, she concentrated on Dr. Reed, on the strength she could find in his presence. She gritted her teeth, her breath coming in shallow gasps. I can't do this alone." "Yes, you can," he encouraged, his voice rising above the chaos. "You're stronger than you know. Just push." The words ignited a flicker of determination deep within her. She gripped his hand as another contraction hit, the pressure mounting like a storm swelling on the horizon. She bore down, muscles straining, her body shaking with effort. Time bent in the ensuing moment, a mix of fury and fortitude erupting with each push. A voice interrupted, cutting through the turmoil. "Doctor, we need assistance." The emergency director burst into the room right then, a troubled look on his face, deeply concerned. "We're losing her." Kayla's heart plummeted. Who was losing whom? She was losing control of her body, of the moment. "What is going on?" she barely choked out, dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. "Just one more push, Kayla. You can do this." Dr. Reed was urging her again, but that look from the director hung like a dark cloud. Panic rooted deep in her chest, growing heavier than the pain in her abdomen. The sense of urgency shifted the air into a suffocating pressure. The screams of chaos outside morphed into a blur of fear that mixed dense uncertainty with her own struggle to bring life forth. Breathing became frantic, her focus wavering between the looming dread of loss and the charge of bringing her child into the world. "Hold on, Kayla." Dr. Reed's voice vibrated with strength, yet uncertainty danced just beneath the surface. "For your baby." But just as she was about to summon her strength for one last push, the emergency director's phone rang, piercing the noise with an unexpected melody that felt ominous and unsettling. His face paled even further as he answered, swallowing hard. "What? Nowhere?" The words were clipped, and Kayla felt a shiver creep down her spine. "What is it?" Dr. Reed demanded, worry flooding his features. But even before the director could respond, an unexpected blast of noise erupted from the hallway, and the fight Kayla was wrestling within transcended the boundaries of her labor. It felt as if the entire hospital was dragging them all into something dark and spiraling. "What is happening?" she gasped, feeling her heart race outside her body. And then it hit her. Secrets flowed through this hospital like blood through veins. Something was about to break, and she was right in the heart of it, teetering on the brink of life, death, and the truth. Would she discover what lay beneath the surface of that deafening chaos? Or would the threads of fate entwine her too tightly, pulling her into the heart of a mystery far beyond her pain? The noise swelled in the hallway. It felt as if the walls themselves were trembling, reflecting the turmoil inside Kayla. The scream that had resonated outside didn't just belong to somebody else. It held the weight of impending tragedy, crackling through the air, an electric spark tinged with dread. "Kayla." Dr. Reed's voice penetrated the chaos, but it felt distant, like an echo fading in the storm. "Stay with me. We're going to get through this." She wanted to believe him. She desperately clung to the hope housed in his voice, the strength shining in his eyes, but it was difficult. Everything inside felt like a contracting coil, each pulse bringing her closer to the edge. Time distorted, stretch marks of anxiety clawing at her chest. "Just one more push," he commanded, leaning down closer as if their souls could intertwine through that singular moment of desperation. In the next instant, the emergency director turned, panic swirling like a tempest all around him. "Code Blue," he barked, eyes wide with fear. Those words sent a jolt through her, an emergency that wasn't even hers, yet so deeply felt. The room seemed to transform. The sterile white walls felt oppressive now, swallowing her sense of safety. She could sense the orchestrated chaos of footsteps outside. Every detail heavy breathing. The rustle of medical gowns felt amplified within her racing mind. Please, what is happening? Kayla forced her voice, desperate to pull herself back to the moment that mattered. Kayla, push. Dr. Reed's tone was steady, anchored in the eye of the storm. The contraction hit again, blindingly intense, merging agony and urgency. She bore down, nails digging dull grooves into his skin as he held her hand. I can't, she gasped, uncertainty raw in her heart. Yes, you can. Fight for your baby, fight for us. His words crackled with a past filled with promise, but the honor between them felt so far away now. It was hard to distinguish what was fear and what was the effacing of their history. Suddenly, the emergency director pointed at Dr. Reed, voice urgent. You need to her mind world. That moment, that slip of attention, felt monumental. The room teetered on the brink of calamity. The underlying tension sparked an understanding deep within her, and all at once, what had been noise morphed into clarity. Find out what is happening, she croaked, the words surfacing through her haze of panic. You can't leave me. In that frantic split second, the door swung open wide, a cadre of figures appearing in quick succession, adrenaline pouring like water from a burst dam. We've got multiple victims, a woman shouted, almost breathless. One confirmed gunshot. We could use all hands. A sharp gasp echoed through Kayla, one she couldn't suppress. Everything blurred her labor, the chaos, the unseen threat lurking beyond. She felt the temperature drop, a chill wrapping around her heart. They're bringing people in. Her voice trembled, heart plummeting. What if it's but the next scream, louder and viler than before, ripped through her thoughts. Gripping each element of her reality seemed almost absurd in the face of such horror. Dr. Reed looked torn between the duty he had always carried and the fragile life they were creating. In that split second he hesitated, weighing the chaos against her. Kayla, he murmured, urgent yet cautious. We need to forge ahead. Can you push again? But self-doubt seeped like poison. The weight of impending loss threatened to crush her spirit. The very floor beneath seemed unstable. A whisper of truth flickered to life, buried deep. Grace existed in chaos. But would she find a way through this frightening tempest? Could they balance the babies they hoped to bring forth with the lives that were now dangerously at stake? As Kayla closed her eyes and called forth every ounce of strength, a haunting thought loomed. If she managed to give life, what darkness might she inadvertently usher into the world? With the sound of distant sirens growing ever nearer, she steeled herself for the unknown. A moment had arrived, a moment that could change everything, or could cost them all. But could either of them stand to lose again? The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kayla drew in a sharp breath, transforming dread into desperate courage. The walls of the delivery room felt like they were closing in on her, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. She couldn't afford to break down now, not with the world so deeply in chaos beyond these walls. Dr. Reed, please, she begged, her voice barely louder than a whisper. The lurch of anxiety rolled in her gut as the reality of what was happening outside felt too much to bear. What if? But he interrupted her, his eyes fierce and unwavering. You're going to be okay. Just focus on me. One more push. That is all I need from you. The urgency in his voice stabbed through her fear. She nodded, surrendering to the pain that was swelling again, a tempest within. Every contraction seemed to twist her insides, setting her on fire. But as she prepared to push, another distant scream penetrated, a siren call of panic that resonated in her bones. Dr. Reed turned again, glancing at the door, then back at Kayla, torn between two worlds. Behind the door, shouts erupted and footsteps thundered like a stampede. The nurses exchanged worried glances, tension writhed among them. Kayla could almost see their thoughts. What lay beyond? Were their lives on the line? Stay with me, Kayla. Dr. Reed clutched her hand tighter, as if that contact could stave off the raw fear swirling around them. We're almost there. She could see the light in his eyes, the flicker of their shared history, yet it felt like a haunting reminder of a relationship tainted by layers of hurt. The man she once loved now stood as her lifeline, yet doubt crept into her thoughts like a thief, stealing her resolve. Do it, Dr. Reed commanded, a subtle edge of desperation creeping into his tone. Now, with a sob of determination rising up from deep inside her, Kayla pushed with everything she had. The pain of labor collided with the chaos outside, forming an unbearable symphony. She focused on Dr. Reed, on the warmth of his hand, and plunged into the depths of her struggle. Then, just as the world outside reached a fever pitch, she felt at the sudden release, a new wave of life thrusting from her core. Time warped, a dizzying mix of euphoria and anguish. The first cries of her baby sliced through the noise, a beacon breaking through the storm. But the elation was short-lived. In that moment, as she cradled her newborn to her chest, sirens blared louder outside. The chaotic shuffle of people rushed by the door, and the tension grew thicker, pressing on her from all sides. She felt it, an ominous weight, and suddenly, her heart plummeted to her stomach. Then she saw it, a flicker of panic in Dr. Reed's eye. "Stay put," he ordered the nurses, his voice a commanding force. He turned, ready to leave, but she clutched his wrist, a vice grip. "What is happening?" she demanded, urgency igniting her voice. "Kayla, I need to know." Her voice filled with a raw edge. "You can't just leave me. Not now." He hesitated, torn between duty and a raging conflict inside him. The cries of the baby in her arms mingled with chaos outside, sparking an unforgiving reality. If danger lay beyond, everything they held dear might hang by the thinnest thread. That instant felt precarious, a fragile moment where two worlds collided. "Kayla, listen." The door slammed open, and a stretcher carried in two blood-soaked paramedics, faces taut with urgency. The atmosphere shifted instantly, the air thick with dread. "No. What if it's someone I know?" Kayla's voice strained as her worst fears crept in. Dr. Reed's eyes softened, filled with an urgency she could hardly grasp. "Trust me." She wanted to scream that she could trust him, had trusted him once, but the grip of uncertainty tightened around her heart. "Trust me," he echoed, but the chaos surged again, stealing her breath. As the walls pulsed with impending doom, she realized the true weight of the moment, the fragility of life hanging in the balance. Could she pave the way for hope amidst such horror? Just then, another shout rang through, the echo of someone calling out. A name she recognized. A name that plunged her heart into icy dread. "Where's Sarah?" Time stood still as fear cascaded through Kayla. Who was hurt? What was happening to the people she cared about? The cacophony morphed into a shocking reality. The world outside had intruded more than she thought, and now it threatened to tear everything apart. As the urgency pulsated around her, one question loomed larger than any other. Who would be left standing when the dust settled? Kayla's heart raced as she gripped her baby tighter, the innocent weight a stark contrast to the chaos erupting around her. The echo of Sarah's name shattered through her thoughts like glass. Where's Sarah? The question slipped into the air like a bullet, its deadly intent palpable. She had to know. Fear twisted in her gut, an instinct demanding answers. "Stay focused, Kayla." Dr. Reed's voice cut through her panic, but the urgency burned in her chest. "We'll deal with this after." But she couldn't shake it. Images flashed in her mind, Sarah laughing, her colorful scarf fluttering in the wind, just moments before everything changed. Kayla's breaths came shallow, straining against a rising tide of dread. The stretcher rolled in, and the paramedics were a flurry of motion. Faces obscured, they fought through the chaos, hands moving swiftly to combat the unseen. They bumped past the nurses who stood aghast, their eyes wide with fear. "Get me a blood bag," one yelled, urgency thrumming in his voice. A loud crash from the hallway sent shivers down her spine. It pierced through the sterile air, mingling with the cries of her baby. The screams outside were no longer just echoes. They gripped at her mind, yanking her toward a truth she wasn't ready to face. "Dr. Reed." Kayla gasped, her voice breaking. He looked too determined, too focused, as he barked orders at the nurses. "You have to tell me what is happening. I need to know." If her chest tightened, and she gulped for air. "If Sarah is okay." He hesitated, a flicker of something dark passing over his face. "Kayla, please, is she hurt?" The desperation in her voice would have echoed off the hospital walls if chaos hadn't swallowed it whole. Before he could respond, a commotion erupted outside the room. A voice shouted from the hallway, pleading, "Help! We need help now." Kayla's heart dropped. Panic reigned in her chest like a captive animal, clawing to be freed. She strained to see, but the nurses crowded the entrance, blocking her view. Their voices merged into a cacophony of urgency and fear, drowning her thoughts, and she caught snippets of words. Gunshots, civilians locked down, her world shrunk around her. Her heart raced, a horrific realization dawning. Sarah was out there, somewhere in the madness. The sterile hospital had transformed into a perilous battleground. No, Kayla cried out, her voice rising as she pushed against Dr. Reed's grip. I can't sit here. I need to find her. Kayla, think. He snapped back, the flicker of anger catching her off guard. You just had a baby. You're not in a position to fight this. She felt the anger bleed into despair. What if I lose everyone? What if it's too late? Dr. Reed sealed his jaw, caught between the swirling chaos of the room and the turmoil of his heart. U1T, he finally said, his voice low and steady, as though he were tapping into the deep well of their history. We will find her. But right now, I need you to focus on yourself and your baby. Please. But how could she? The weight of every moment felt cataclysmic, each second ticking down like a countdown to catastrophe. The door burst open again, and another paramedic stormed in, dragging a gurney, a severely injured person obscured under a blanket. The sight shattered her resolve. We're losing him. The paramedic shouted. The urgency, the desperation, it clawed at her heart. Dr. Reed, she shouted, her fear morphing into raw need. You have to see if it's someone I know. Please. As he moved toward the patient, she felt her world spin. What if Sarah was in that same chaos, lost to the chaos outside? Just as she grasped her baby tighter, a piercing scream sliced through the air. The source was too close, it sent chills racing down her spine. Kayla. It was Dr. Reed's voice again, now urgent, filled with an alarm that grabbed her attention. The panic grew, echoing in the hospital halls. Every second became unbearably heavy, and with it, a terrible question loomed larger. What if the ones they loved most were the ones left behind in the storm? Before she could voice her fears, another voice echoed, crackling over the intercom. All personnel, lockdown initiated. Code red. Repeat. Code red. Her mind reeled. Lockdown. What was happening outside? Kayla felt the walls closing in, the sounds of chaos swirling in a maelstrom just beyond her reach. The world was collapsing, but one truth echoed clear. There was no turning back now. The reckoning was here, and the time for answers had come. Would she find Sarah alive, or was the worst already upon them? The lights above flickered as if they too felt the tension in the air. Kayla's heart thudded painfully against her ribs. Her eyes darted from Dr. Reed to the doorway, his silhouette framed by the disarray outside. The cries of the injured, twisted in agony and fear, filled her ears, a symphony of chaos that became a tether to reality. Kayla, Dr. Reed called, bringing her focus back to him. Stay right here. But the sound of her baby's whimpers pulled at her resolve. She couldn't stand motionless, a spectator in a nightmare. No, I can't just wait. Not when Sarah could be in danger. Focus on your baby, he insisted, yet the grit in his voice cracked ever so slightly. The internal fight within him was evident, but the urgency around them left no room for indecision. Suddenly, a group of nurses burst into the room, eyes wide with fear, carrying medical gear and a vague sense of dread. We need to move. One of them shouted, breathless with urgency. They just brought in multiple casualties, people we can't save if we don't act quickly. A swell of rage flooded through Kayla. What about my sister? She yelled, desperation coating her words like heavy fog. Is she out there with them? You have to tell me. The paramedics exchanged grim looks, their silence suffocating. Kayla felt the floor tremble beneath her, the weight of their hesitation pushing her deeper into despair. Please, you have to find her. Just then, a scream echoed through the hallway, stark and piercing. It sliced through the fabric of chaos, sharp enough to make her flinch. From the emergency room, another gurney rushed past with yet another victim, moans of pain threading through the commotion. Against the relative calm of her room, this flutter of reality was a body blow. She raised her chin defiantly. I'm going out there. Waking the mother bear, a nurse muttered to another, but Kayla barely heard them. Her mind was a whirlpool. Kayla, you need to calm down, Dr. Reed urged, though his voice trembled slightly. He stepped closer, the flicker of their past almost flickering in the dim light. But she couldn't afford to be distracted by nostalgia or the pulse of him so close. The intercom blared again, cutting through her thoughts like a knife. All personnel, please assume defensive positions. Repeat, assume defensive positions. This is not a drill. Panic surged through her veins like ice water. She shook in frustration, the baby still nestled in her arms. They could be shooting. What if Sarah is? No, she couldn't say it. She wouldn't surrender to that horror. In a flurry, she turned toward the door. If I stay here, I lose them both. I have to go? A hand caught her arm as she pushed toward the exit. Dr. Reed, his face marred by worry, stressed lines like a map of his conflicted heart. You can't do this, it's unsafe. I won't let you put yourself and your baby at risk. Kayla breathed in sharply, the weight of her fear a tangible entity. And what if it's your daughter out there too? She shot back, the words cutting at their shared history. He faltered. At that moment, the world collided violently. Another round of screams echoed, invisible bullets whizzing through the uncertainty. The lockdown, the code read the words clawed at her thoughts. Please. Kayla breathed, pleading. I need to find her. We're going together. Dr. Reed hesitated, each moment stretching between them like a chasm. Then, a slow nod, laced with resignation, broke across his face. All right, but stick close to me. Kayla's heart soared with a flicker of hope. Perhaps they could navigate this chaos together, bound by more than tangled past ties. But as they stepped into the hallway, the tang of fear clung to her like a shroud. Something primal whispered that this was just the beginning, a hazy promise of chaos ahead. And just before they took a step into the fray, another scream erupted, louder this time, shaking her to the core. This time, the voice was painfully familiar. Sarah. Time froze as dread filled the space around her, a heavy fog that threatened to choke her. How close was Sarah to them? Would they find her? Suddenly, the shadows in the hallway shifted. Her heart skipped a beat. The next moment could shatter everything, or tear asunder the very fabric of their lives. Kayla gritted her teeth. They had to move, and they had to move fast before the storm descended. Would they reach Sarah before it was too late, or were they already too far gone? The moment stretched into eternity as Kayla's heart raced out of control. Every step deeper into the chaos felt like wading through a nightmare. Dr. Reed moved beside her, an anchor she desperately needed. When they burst into the hallway, the scene unfolded like an apocalyptic disaster. Nurses rushed past, eyes wide with fear, while medical personnel shouted orders amidst the blaring alarms. The cold fluorescent lights seemed almost mocking. Stay close, Dr. Reed instructed, his voice firm as they pushed through the confusion. But Kayla was on fire with worry. She needed to find Sarah. The vulnerability of the moment was suffocating. Each distant scream pricked at her already fraying nerves. Where is she? Kayla shouted over the chaos, her voice trembling with desperation. The world blurred around her, every face a ghost. The chatter turned into a cacophony, making her blood pound in her ears. A glimpse of movement caught her attention, a gurney being wheeled in from the oar, draped with a blue blanket, a flurry of frantic nurses around it. Dr. Reed, she gasped, fear making her voice break. What if Sarah is on that? She fought to break free from the grip of anxiety, desperate to know. He turned too, eyes narrowing as he assessed the scene. Let me check. Stay right here. He was firm, yet she could see the weight of concern dragging at him. Before she could protest, he pushed through the crowd, disappearing into the chaos. The seconds dragged, her heart thumping like a war drum. Panic surged as she waited, her mind flickering between hope and fear. As Dr. Reed negotiated the thrumming crowd, Kayla caught a distant echo, the clarity of Sarah's scream piercing through the noise, slashing like a knife that a cold wave of dread washed over her. No, not Sarah. Determined now, she pressed forward, ignoring the protests that bubbled up from the crowd. She had to reach her sister. Just as she squeezed past an orderly, Kayla's phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Fumbling with trembling hands, she pulled it out and saw a missed call from Sarah. Her heart lurched. Why hadn't Sarah answered? Kayla. Dr. Reed's voice broke through, a lifeline in this storm of chaos. He was rushing towards her, blood smeared on his coat, his eyes ablaze with fervor. We need to move now. They're bringing in casualties. What about Sarah? She demanded, fear making her voice taut. Is she okay? He hesitated for just a heartbeat too long, and it felt like ice freezing around her heart. I don't know, but we have to leave. It's getting dangerous even in here. No, she shouted, feeling a surge of defiance erupting within her. I can't. Not when my sister is out there. Before she could push further, a trio of paramedics dashed by, the sound of a gurney on wheels echoing sharply against the tile floor. One of them shouted, "We need backup in here. Victims are still coming." Dr. Reed met Kayla's eyes, urgency radiating from him. "Let us go," he commanded, grabbing her arm and leading her down the corridor. Breathing in deeply, they fought through the throng of panicked hospital staff and patients alike, each pulse leading them closer to the unknown. They rounded a corner, and then the air shifted hot and electric. Kayla's instinct screamed. There, she pointed, eyeing a small circle around a group of people. Someone lay on the ground. It could be her. Stay behind me, Dr. Reed instructed, moving closer to the huddle, instinctively protective. But as they neared a doorway, the chaos erupted again. A sudden burst of commotion slammed against them as security personnel pushed through, shouting demands. "Evacuate," one officer bellowed. "Now." Kayla's heart raced. She couldn't wait any longer. Mustering courage, she darted past Reed, moving toward the knot of people huddled around the figure on the ground. "Is that Sarah?" she cried, her voice a mix of hope and despair. Amid the maelstrom, she caught sight of a tuft of familiar hair. Her heart twisted painfully. A pounding in her chest filled her ears, drowning out the chaos. She rushed forward, pushing between bodies and chaos. "Sarah!" The name burst from her lips like a prayer. "Kayla!" Sarah's voice, weak yet determined, broke through the haze. Kayla dropped to her sister's side, breath catching in her throat. There, on the floor, was Sarah, her face pale, eyes wide but unfocused, fear lacing her every breath. "I'm okay. Just a scratch." I think, drawing shaky breaths, she tried to sit up, but winced and fell back against the floor. Kayla's breath caught. "No, stay still. Let me help you." Dr. Reed was suddenly there, kneeling beside Kayla, the weight of their history merging momentarily into their shared urgency to tend to Sarah. "You're going to be okay. We need to get you out of here," he said, his gentle authority cutting through the panic. "Dr. Reed?" Sarah mumbled, confusion etching her features. "What are you?" "Kayla, hold her head," Reed ordered, working quickly. "We have to stabilize you before we can move you to safety." Kayla nodded, her heart pounding in unison with Sarah's breaths, her fingers deftly tugging Sarah close. "You're safe with me. I'm not letting you go," she whispered fiercely, but there was no time for reassurance. The building shook again, carrying echoes of sirens blaring outside, rattling every nerve in her body. "We have to go now," Dr. Reed urged, taking charge of the situation. All around them, chaos stirred up like a whirlwind. The air felt thick and electric, shadows looming larger than ever before. And then, amidst the tension born of urgency, a sharp crash sounded behind them, throwing another wave of fear spiraling through the already frantic group. "We need to move," one of the doctors ordered, but his voice barely broke through the noise. With a gritted jaw, Dr. Reed and Kayla teamed up to help Sarah, lifting her as carefully as they could through the clutter of bodies. "Just hold on," Kayla said, determination coursing through her. "We're getting you out." But as they pressed ahead, the distant crashing and screeching of chaos blended into a scream of sirens, an urgent reminder that the world outside was more volatile than anything they'd ever faced. Step by step, they forged ahead, the three of them bound not just by blood, but by shared fear and an urgency to survive. The scene blurred into a flurry of movement, a rhythm of hope against the dread. And through that haze, Kayla understood that their battle was far from over. But together, they would face whatever awaited them on the other side, whatever darkness loomed over them. As they pressed onward, adrenaline fueling each step, the truth became clear. Love, even in pieces, had the power to shield them amidst the storm. In the chaos that surrounded them, they chose to fight to hold on to each other and emerge into a new dawn together. Everyone in the world holds a story, and perhaps, just perhaps, their journey was only just beginning. Now, if you've enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss a single story that could change your life. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. And dive into the comments, flood them with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us know what you think. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything to us, and together we can continue bringing these incredible stories to life.